Welcome to B2B No Bull.
That's right, no double speaker gibberish, no talking heads. This is a safe place to talk about what you as professionals in the space can do to look like heroes to your bosses, make sales very happy, bring success to the organization, and that bottom line. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to B2B No Bull. I'm Liz Brohan.
And I'm still her brother, Mark, here to save you from buzzword bingo.
So as you'll recall, in the last episode, we actually learned a lot about what Agentic AI meant and what its definition was. And today we're going to dive a little deeper and we're going to talk about actually what implementation looks like and probably most importantly, how not to screw it up.
But if you're thinking, sounds great, but my team can't even align an email campaign, this one, my friend, is for you.
Absolutely. And so we're so excited to let you know that back with us today is Scott Wingo. Scott was originally the co-founder of Channel Advisor, and now he is the CEO of Refi Buy. And he is going to lead us through all of this because he is a technology expert and rebel.
Hey, Liz and Mark, thanks for having me back. It's been a long time. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, so everybody's a little overwhelmed. You know, we're all still trying to absorb the information. So let's just begin. Where do marketers actually want to start in terms of utilizing Agentic AI?
Yeah, and just to kind of refresh from the last conversation, I think your priority needs to move from using this as a internal, tooling for automating emails and that kind of thing. And I think what you need to start thinking about is outside in. So how do you optimize your transaction engine for your products to be seen, researched, and bought using the Agentic commerce engines? So just to level set, the big one is ChatGPT, and it's like 80% share. But then you also have Perplexity. Microsoft's is called Copilot. You can go to copilot.microsoft.com. And then Google's is called Gemini. Google's is confusing because they have 3 flavors of AI. So when you get the little box on traditional Google that answers your question, that's called an AI overview. And then you can go to gemini.google.com, which is their just pure chatbot. And then they have the third one, and that's the one that's kind of the most active right now, is on traditional Google. If you look to the right, it says AI mode. And that's kind of a preview of what's going to come when they flip from traditional Google mode to AI mode. And what I encourage marketers to do is just that. So learn these engines that I just mentioned and go look for some of your products on them. And then in this, I've done a presentation that will splice some of it in here if you're watching on the video, and on audio, it'll be available in the show notes and I'll talk you through it. But what I've done is I've actually gone to a couple of the engines and entered some B2B products so you can kind of see what does this look like. So over on slide 27, I went to Perplexity. And I entered in, I'm looking to buy, this is what we call a prompt instead of a search term. I'm looking to buy a Fluke 323 clamp meter.
I want one.
And I know Mark is probably a hobbyist, gets out there and measures electricity or something on the weekends.
What better fun?
Yeah. But this is like something common every electrician would have and every plumber. And so it's kind of more of a service kind of industry type of a thing. And you can see, so what happens is on these engines today, many times you get what we call a product card. So it actually knows a lot about products out there, and it will do what we call popping a product card. And it'll say, here's what I found. It actually finds 3 different flavors of this Fluke 323. And then when you click on it, it gives you reviews for this product. And I think it's good for marketers to just kind of like get familiar with this, because what you'll find is, number one, it can be shocking, because don't be surprised if your products aren't showing up. And that's what we'll talk about. And then number 2, as you start to learn, like, why is it showing up in a certain order? It's very different than what we're used to in Google and other, what I would call external channels. It is using a lot of, it's combining information that you've never seen before, probably as a marketer. So for example, in my world, it pulls in a lot of Redditor reviews, people on Reddit. And I think this will actually happen in B2B too. Like these flukes, several of the things did come from these electrician Reddit groups. The thing about Reddit is there's a group for everything. So, it's just like a little community where people talk about every topic on the planet. So, and then you can, once you, so that's where I would start, Liz, is I would look at that. And then on the right-hand side, I did the same thing for GPT. Now, in this example, it didn't show a product card, but it does list where you can find it and the prices it can find. And then on the next one, I just searched for a different product, which is a Panduit cable tie tool, just to kind of show you that this is all active for B2B today. This is not coming. It's here today. Your products are being searched for this way, or people are looking to research, find and buy your products using this mechanism today. So I would, as a marketer, step one is get yourself familiar with how people are using these and pick 5 or 10 of your top sellers and run them through prompts, and sign up for all these engines I mentioned, run them through yourself and start learning about what's going on. Are you showing up or not? And how do you make sure? And then we can talk about, all right, once you've done this, what's next?
I got to love this AI stuff. I just do. The other day, I think it was Monday, I had a guy ask me, well, did your AI program hallucinate today? You know what I told him? I said, A, pot's legal in Illinois, and B, I went to school in the 70s, so I know something about a hallucination. But,
What?
Anyway, I guess there's a transition in there someplace. But I want to get back to the squares here. So you don't start with AI, reinvent our brand voice. You start with AI, stop making me pull pivot tables. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's if you want to use AI for more of a automation, absolutely. So, there's it can be overwhelming. There's AI tools for everything, and I typically have to look at 4 or 5 of them if I want to replace like a pivot table or something like that to do the analysis I want to. But yeah, these tools are very, very powerful. But some of them, if you have a very specific thing you want them to do, sometimes they fail at that. So you have to really on the finding a tool to help you with like an Excel problem or something like that. It takes a little while to find the right one, but they're out there.
It does occur to me that it's almost like a new form of behavioral marketing. What you were describing before, the whole outside in approach. Mm-hmm. So B2B marketers or marketers everywhere are not necessarily going to want to start from scratch, even though in some situations, like you just described, we may have to. But how does it work with our current technology? Are we going to have to, is HubSpot and Salesforce and Adobe and all of that going to evolve as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've all got religion. So HubSpot is actually pretty amazing. So they've got this thing. Remember, I mentioned this MCP. So HubSpot has an MCP interface. So you can actually go into one of the more popular ones is Claude, and I think ChatGPT can do this now too. And you can connect it to your HubSpot. And I've seen people we've done that before, where we're like, what are the top 10 opportunities we haven't followed up with in the last week? Which that report would be kind of hard to run in HubSpot. This is like the B2B context, and it just basically lists them out, and it just like does it instantaneously. So that's true. But that's like on the automation. To Mark's point, on your point, HubSpot is one of the leading thinkers on this. And if you've been in the HubSpot universe, they've always talked about inbound marketing, which is you put a lot of content into the universe around your products, and that pays back to you in the form of people learning about your products and coming to you to buy, right? That's how you get a lot of organic traffic. Well, the good news is that same strategy is what you need to do for agentic commerce. So these engines, they want much more content. And so the good news is, and this is where I think our role as marketers is actually going to be elevated in the world, because we're the content people, right? So all the content flows to the marketing team. And let's use a tactical example. Let's say you're selling one of these Fluke 232s and you went through the example I just showed and you're not showing up. The first step is to say, there's a couple of reasons why that's possible you're not showing up. The first thing I find is a lot of companies, unbeknownst to the marketing team, are blocking these agents. So they're stopping ChatGPT from indexing their site, which is like stopping the Google from indexing your site. So that's number one, is make sure, go to your IT department and your infrastructure team and make sure you're not blocking any of these agents. And you can They all have very specific names, and you can whitelist them. Or I actually think most of the bot traffic is good and not doing something evil. It's not trying to do denial of service or something like that. And there's a lot of people use a company like Cloudflare as their infrastructure layer for this. And Cloudflare, because the bulk of Cloudflare's customers are news sites, people that monetize content, their settings are default block all agents. So that's bad for us in the commerce world because we want most of our information. You want your product information to be out there in the world, right? And easily accessible so you can be in the consideration set. So that's the first step that I find most people have gotten wrong is unbeknownst to the marketer, they're blocking what is increasingly a large percentage of people from knowing about their products. So that's number one.
Oh, that's huge. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. So step zero is go to these engines and look for some of your products, and then see how they're showing up. And then number two, if they're not showing up, you're probably blocking them.
But I guess to follow on to Liz's question, my question is, the technology is here, but the timeline we've been talking about here is very, very short. 18 to 24 months, and you were citing some incredible statistics from our first episode about how fast these marketers are seeing their Google traffic go away and more of this agent-driven traffic begin to replace, what has been traditionally how they build their digital marketing programs. So you don't waste 2 years trying to build this technology. You start with what's out there and layer it in over time. Is that the best way that marketers should understand the new technology they have to implement here?
Yeah, I think on the outside in, you're probably already behind and you need to catch up quickly. So I think you probably got like a 6-month window to kind of catch up and lean in on this.
That's not much.
No.
Yeah.
The
good news is that the action items I'm going to give you are pretty simple and that you already have most of the tools in your toolbox. These are not big projects for your products to show up in these engines is not going to be a Herculean effort. So that's the good thing. Now, if you want to go in and do this heavy lift of, an internal inventory optimization project, that's huge, and that's not my wheelhouse. But anytime you get a big project, capital P, that involves multiple divisions of your company and stakeholders and buy-in and alignment and all that jazz, it's going to take a lot of time in any company. The good news is the things I'm going to talk about tend to be siloed within the marketing department, with the one exception of, hey, IT team, please do not block these bots because I need them to see my content.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting the IT team on board. Do you think that'll be easy? It never has been.
Well, I think this is one you're going to need to go, and this is why I like providing these slides. Think of these slides as a ready-made case study or use case for you to go make your case to the CEO or whoever
Excellent.
you need to basically say, hey, the IT team, I understand their concerns, but the only data, and a lot of people have this fear, and Mark, I'm sure you've seen this too. They have this fear of AI where they're like, it's going to steal my data. Well, sure, you don't want to expose to it your sales data, and you don't want to expose to it your
financial data,
property, your financial data. But we all have an e-commerce website for a reason, and that's because we want people to learn about our products, and that's basically open source data. You would, let's use this example of a Fluke. So we're keeping the AI from seeing our version of the product page for this Fluke 232. It doesn't matter. It already knows about the Fluke 32. We're not going to teach it anything new about the Fluke 232. What we're doing is we're basically saying, oh, we have one of those to sell and we're opting out because we're scared. And that doesn't make any sense. And history has shown these companies that do the ostrich head in the sand thing with these new technologies end up not really making it a lot of times. So I've been in meetings with like the CEO of Sears and JCPenney and Circuit City, and they weren't worried about Amazon and e-commerce, and it was a fad, Borders, and it was going to not really disrupt their business, and they're no longer with us. So this has become it's very close to an existential crisis for a lot of marketers. That this should be your most important thing you work on. I'm obviously biased, but if you need to get in front of this, and your company needs to get really good at marketing your products to AI agents.
Well, before we get into success factors, Scott, I mean, you just mentioned, the dinosaurs of the retail world. And, I talk to a lot of mid-level distribution companies every day. And, they were saying the same thing about Amazon Business, the marketplace, which is going to do $35 billion this year and dwarf what a lot of other companies are doing. They always seem to think that because they've been around for 100 years and they've got, what they do and their sales force and their customer base is all hid behind a firewall with a master catalog and the suggested pricing, they're still good to go. My question to you, though, is before we get to success factors is I personally think that this is a new opportunity for B2B marketers to reinvent their entire marketing sales segue because given the complexity of selling in the B2B world, depending upon the vertical, these tools can make it easier coming in from these agent-driven channels to, categorize, price, CPQ. I mean, in other words, get the complexity out to that customer much faster and much easier than before. To me, that's where the game changer might be for B2B marketers. But of course, that's my observation.
I think that's 100% right. In the consumer world, I would say I'm envious of B2B marketers because in the consumer world, our content's kind of thin. There's only so much you can say about like Liz's shoes or your shoes, right?
They're nice shoes.
They're nice shoes. They're made of this. They're from this country. They're this size, and that's about it. But you guys have so much more you can talk about with your products. The other thing that really matters a lot, so you've got to your point that you've got your CPQ and configurability. There's also compatibility, right? So that's kind of like what sizes for a shoe in consumer world, but in your world, what you want to say about compatibility can be paragraphs, if not pages, and and books about these widgets you sell, and especially in the industrial category. You have to be really specific about what it does do and doesn't do in its specs. And that's the other thing I would tell a marketer is in prior marketing to humans, we're trying to really boil down the information into concise, like 4 bullets or something like that. And that's hard in B2B. Well, the good news is the engines don't want 4 bullets. They would love like an 80-page PDF of the specs of your product. And most of us have that. And as marketers, we've struggled. So a thing I would see, another best practice, I think, is having a lot of B2B sites have this, but make sure you do and it's readable. A lot of the engines can't scan JavaScript, and a lot of times this is behind JavaScript, is having a tab on the product detail page that's like technical specifications and go way deeper than you ever would for a human. The engine will consume all that. And to your point, Mark, that's going to help the sales team because the user is going to use the answer engine and get way further down the funnel. And by the time they're ready to buy, they've understood it works in my use case because the engine knew all about these configuration things and compatibility things, and they're going to call the salesperson and basically say, I just have 2 questions left. Whereas before they're starting way up in the research phase. So I think I think this is actually good news for B2B folks because you have so much content. Your products are perfect for this new world. You just got to make sure you're getting in the game and you're being as transparent as possible. There's going to be a little bit of a fight in the early days, I think, for that.
I was just thinking about the fight, and I was wondering, Scott, if you can tell us if we're going to be able to leverage all of this to provide differentiation, because I start to worry about commoditization. When I think about my products and my spec sheets and that they're not that different from, the other guy's products and spec sheets. So can we leverage this for differentiation?
Well, I think that ship kind of sailed in the e-commerce world, right? So e-commerce is kind of, where you see differentiation is service. And that's true in commerce. So it's Nordstrom versus Walmart and dollar stores. There's a customer that wants and needs service and they're willing to pay for it. And that is typically the best defense against commoditization. Selection, having this information is going to be huge. People will trust you more if you have the information, and the engines will trust you more. So the engines love content, context, which is like the what applications is this good in, and what's the compatibility, and then they also love authority. So out there, if you're known for being the best at plumbing supplies or industrial manufacturing widgets and fans and engines and all these motors and stuff of this nature, that's the new PageRank. So being on your A game and having a great service before and after the transaction is going to result in the engines, really. To the marketers out there that run my experiment, and you're showing up high, as you dig in, it's probably because your organization is well regarded externally. So the engines put way more weight into that, and they're really good because they use natural language. They don't have to use links to put it together, right? So that can be easily gamed. That's part of the problem with Google's algorithm is all these people can create these fake sites, and it's this constant arms battle. Well, the engines they're pretty good at saying, okay, the user's looking for this Fluke 232 from ABT Electronics, and I read nothing but good things about ABT Electronics and the Fluke 232. Therefore, I'm going to show it up first. So it's like having, it has the whole internet in its brain, and it's really good at tying all that stuff together when it makes recommendations to the user.
I guess the big takeaway there, which I feel is fortunate, is that customer experience is going to have to drive a lot of this, but the brand isn't going anywhere. And the content that we're putting out around the brand will also continue to be just as important to make sure that they come and they buy my, Lux capacitor.
Culture and change.
I think for marketers, what you should do next year. So this year, make sure you're not breaking it, right? You're not stopping these things. And then next year, I think you go to the CEO and say, if we really want to lean in on this, we're going to need to put a lot more content out. And I want to expand what we're doing there. And I think it's humans, I think humans are doing the content with support from AI. They can AI is really good at helping you brainstorm that, but I wouldn't just splat out a bunch of garbage Gen AI generated stuff, right? It needs to be very unique, high quality about your products and really adding context to the conversation.
Oh, I think that is music to marketers' ears. I think that'll be huge. Absolutely. So are there any other steps in the process? Have we covered off on, I know we know what to do first and second, and what else do you recommend?
So a couple other best practices. The product detail page is increasingly important. And what we found is a lot of people have site-wide things. So they'll have a site-wide free shipping or something like that doesn't show up until the cart. Well, some of the agents will ultimately get to the cart and report that to the user. But right now, in the early research and find parts, not the buy part of the discovery cycle, the engines aren't great at realizing it's site-wide. So if you have a special offer of any kind, it should be on the PDP in a very clear way, some near the cart button or something like that. And then I know B2B people are sensitive about putting prices out there and transparency, but if there's some experiments you can run, or there are some products you don't mind having it, definitely the more transparent you can be, the more it's going to help you on this, and the more content you can put on that PDP. And then, then the other one is, and this kind of ties to, I mentioned this a little bit in the last episode, but there's these new solutions called GEO out there where, I told you to manually go through and look at 5 or 6 of your products. What I think you're going to want to do is, my recommendation is, however many SKUs you have, if you have 5,000 SKUs, you want to be monitoring 10% of that. So pick kind of a good smattering across sales rank and categories and price points and customer sets, and monitor what those are doing on the engines and look for any big changes. Maybe we had a jewelry client one time that their product just disappeared for a while, their top selling necklace. And as we dug into it, what had happened is someone gave it a review in Reddit, recently that they didn't see, and it was wrong. So it had claimed that it was it was something like gold plated, and this reviewer said that's not gold plated, and the reviewer was wrong. They were actually talking about something else. And so they responded to that. And that response told the engine, okay, I trust the brand more than some random Reddit user, and then they popped back up. So there's little things in this world that can be frustrating that make your products not show up, because it is pulling in these externalities you don't have in control over. But the sooner you know about it, the faster you can do something about it. So this monitoring capability is really, really important, and keeping an eye on how are your products showing up. And then the last one is, there are some site structure things. I'm not an expert on that, but there's this schema.org file that you need to make sure, if you're on an e-commerce platform, a lot of times they're updating that for you, but you need to kind of check that It's LLM friendly, and you can put a lot more information in there. The LLMs love that file, and it's where they get a lot of context. And that's where we're going to have this world where you have your human PDP, and then you have SEO, which is kind of like the Google view of your page. And now you're going to have GEO, which is the LLM version of your page. And there's going to be some stuff that will all live on the PDP and be okay, but there's going to be, like maybe you don't want the technical specifications there. In the schema.org, you can link out to that somewhere else on your site that a consumer, a human wouldn't really see, and the agent can pull that in and have access to it. So that's basically it. So I kind of have boiled it down to 7 steps to think about. And so don't block the bots, be transparent, use your content, make sure your pricing to the extent you can is transparent and online. If you have any offers, make sure they're on the PDP, and then use a GEO solution to do some monitoring. And then make sure you've learned about the LLM things you can do for your site structure, and make sure you're following some best practices.
And number 8, don't hallucinate.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, doing these things will keep the LMs from hallucinating about your products.
Shall we go to lightning round?
Yeah, you got a lightning round for us, Mark?
I do.
That is awesome.
So you want to explain what lightning round is to our avid viewers out there and listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. And to Scott, too. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask a question, right? Is this bull or no bull, Mark?
Yes.
Excellent. So we ask a quick question. Scott answers, oh, that's bull, or no, that's not bull. Pretty easy.
And you don't have to phrase your answers in the form of a question, but Scott Wingo, come on down. So every marketer needs to learn to code and use agentic AI.
Bull.
Oh, okay.
All right. Very good. Okay, so here's one. Agentic AI will make marketing more human, not less.
No bull.
Yay.
Agentic AI means the end of agencies.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Bull. I think agencies will always add value in there.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's the world I come from.
They'll look different, but they'll be smaller.
Most early
and
projects will fail.
Internal, no bull. External, bull. By external, I mean the things I outlined will not fail.
There you go. Absolutely. Just follow Scott's advice.
My last lightning round, I think, even though it is lightning round, I would like to ask you, because we have a range of marketers that listen to our podcast, from mid-level to beginner to to the CMO.
Yeah.
What I think is on everybody's mind is the human aspect, which is as we progress into this yet unknown world, but fast approaching world of agentic AI, Scott, are we going to see a total reinvention of what the marketing team, beginning with the CMO on down to, what copywriters do and designers do? Are we going to see a complete reinvention of what the CMO team or what the marketing team does for a living because of the agentic AI approaching?
I think we are. And it's basically a new customer. So I think of it that way, right? So your previous human customer now has a GPS-like device technology that's helping them buy things and research them. So you need to make sure you're now talking to both of those. You need to talk to their agent that's assisting them in their buying journey, and you need to talk to them. And I think that's exciting because you now have kind of you have two personas. We in consumer we have personas of like the soccer mom and all this kind of cliche stuff. And I'm sure in B2B you have different personas too, right? There's the purchasing agent. There's the individual contributor that ultimately needs this widget that you're selling, but they have to convince the purchasing agent and their boss. And you probably have but there's just another persona. And I think it's going to supercharge what you can do in the marketing, and it's going to make what you do more valuable in the organization because the content that you provide and that you've worked on, it mattered in the past. It's going to be 10x as important now because it's going to be used by this assistant out there, and that's going to make your role even more important to make sure you're getting into that new persona.
Now, you and I have known each other for a lot of years, and you're kind of an e-commerce rebel, as my sister Liz described here. But tell us about your new venture quickly, if you would, or not quickly.
Yeah,
'Cause
so the
you're in the AI world, my friend.
recommendations I just gave you are capabilities we're basically giving you, the marketing team, your agents to help you along this journey, right? So our agents look at your product catalog, they pull it in, they evaluate it and say, here's some things we would recommend, here's some things you should do for your site structure. You can do all the things I told you without my software, okay? But this is how I know it works, because we have customers using our software that does it for you. And it's because it's hard to do at scale, right? So everything I talked about on one SKU is not bad. 10, you're like, no, that's going to take a while. But if you have thousands of SKUs, it's going to take darn near forever. And that's where the agents can be helpful. So that's what we've built. So we take your catalog, we evaluate it, and we kind of say, here's the things that are great. Here's some site structure stuff you should change. At the product level, here's some attributes you're missing. You may be missing some, we do think you should have a technical specification for this. You don't have a price for this. You should think about that. And then we actually say, here's some attributes. As we look at other things going on out there, we say, other people, and I'll use this Fluke example, other people are talking about the voltage min and max for this Fluke. You don't really talk about that. You also don't talk about how portable it is. You should add that to your product catalog. Then we take that and distribute it to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, all the engines I mentioned. Then we monitor your SKUs for you, and then we feed that back in and do a full circle for you. So we're kind of the buyer has their assistant. We're the marketer's assistant that helps you get to the buyer's assistant, if that makes sense.
Oh, I think that's a must.
That's interesting stuff. I'm telling you.
So
Liz, where can I sign you up?
Absolutely. Let's talk. All right. And in the meantime,
take away my entrepreneur card if I didn't try to close a deal here.
Where can everybody else find you? I already got you.
Yeah. So my company's called RefiBuy.ai, and that's BUI, and that stands for Research, Find, and Buy, the customer journey that we're trying to help marketers automate. And then I do a lot of thought leadership on this topic under the sister brand Retail Agentic. So it's the word retail kind of married with Agentic minus the A. And there, I also have a podcast where we go into all these topics, and then we do a lot of thought. The slides that I did are all from the thinking we're doing there as we help folks like you navigate this new kind of rapidly changing world.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the masterclass, Scott. Once again, our 2-part series has been so informative. And like Mark said, I think that there's many more episodes to come on this issue, and we'll be turning to you for that help. So thank you again for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me. After 2 back-to-back lightning rounds, I'm going to have to go take a nap. That was
no
intense.
kidding.
Just have your agent do it next time.
All right, everybody. So I do want to remind you that to get the slides that you can take to IT and take to your CEO and probably your boss, they will be in the show notes wherever you get your podcasts, and they will also be available on our website. That's b2bnobull.com, and we will have a link to them in both of the episode descriptions. So thank you for that, Scott. That is enormously helpful.
Thank you.
Yes. And very
Thanks for having me,
quickly,
guys.
I'm just going to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Motion Agency. They were recently ranked the number 2 B2B marketing communications firm in the U.S. Please check them out. And also Embas. Embas is a marketing consulting firm that specializes in content development, change management, and much more. So thank you to them. Everybody, come back soon, because we really have to get through the bull versus no bull on these issues. So stay tuned. See you soon.
As Al Pacino says, we're just getting started. So.